So let's talk a little bit about fillings for the ravioli. So I have not rolled the pasta out yet, and the reason for that is that I don't want it to dry out. So I have made my fillings and I've let those fillings cool. But essentially I have two fillings. The first one is a filling made with sweet potato and squash. There's some butter in here, so I'll put the exact amounts in the description of the in the Substack post. So it's about a cup of baked mashed sweet potato and about a cup of mashed cooked squash, butternut squash. There's about a tablespoon of butter in here as well. There's the chopped sage, which was the sage that I did in the frying pan that I cooked in a little bit of oil and butter. Chop that up and put it in. I also put some fresh nutmeg, so using my grater and an actual nutmeg, I put some nutmeg in, and and some salt and pepper, and that is it for the squash filling. So that's filling number one. Filling number two is a filling that's made with ricotta. So I use the ricotta cheese, about 1 cup of ricotta cheese. I also grated in here about a couple of tablespoons of very finely grated Parmesan cheese. So I actually used the same microplane grater to grate my parm because I wanted it nice and fluffy. I don't want it chunky. And so it mixes in really well. I have some freshly chopped basil in here as well, about a tablespoon. So it was like maybe 5 or 6 small leaves of basil. And I also put a little bit of heavy cream in here just to kind of smooth this out a little bit. So again, we're talking about a consistency that is, fairly thick. Both of these are going to be piped onto the pasta when we make it using a piping bag like this. You can also just use a Ziploc bag if you don't have a piping bag. I only have one piping bag handy, so I'm going to have to use this for one of the fillings and use a Ziploc bag for one of the other fillings, but that's what we're going to do. So the next step I'm going to show you is the rolling out of the pasta. Now that I have my fillings and I have them cooled, because I don't want to put hot filling in with my pasta, and also the pasta dough has been resting for more than half an hour, but you want to leave it for at least half an hour. Okay, so let's do that. Okay, so now we have the dough that's been resting. I've also put a little bit of flour on the edge of it or over top of it because I don't want it to get all sticky. Once I start cutting it into pieces, it's going to start to get a little bit sticky. I have a rolling pin, so I'll show you can just roll it out by hand if you want. But I also have my, actually let me turn it so you can see it a little bit, my KitchenAid mixer. Which is beautiful, copper, I love it, has this attachment that goes on the front, and it is made specifically for rolling pasta. It comes in a kit that looks like this, and inside the kit there are a number of different attachments. So the main attachment is this one, which does all the rolling for you, and then the other two attachments that are in here, I'm not going to be using them today. These are for cutting. So there are 2 different cutting attachments, and this cutting attachment that's a little bit wider is sort of a linguine / fettuccine size cutter, and the other one that's in there is a spaghetti size cutter. So these will take the rolled pasta and cut it into strips. So that's what that does. We're not using those today because we're going to be using sheets of pasta, but I just wanted to show you what the kit looks like. So you can buy that, or as I mentioned, you can buy a hand crank style, or there's ones that are electric that you can use, but I'm going to be using this. Might get a little bit noisy, but hopefully not too noisy. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this into pieces because I can't put this whole thing through the roller. It's just a little bit too much. So I'm actually going to cut this into probably, I'm going to go with 6 pieces because my board's not that big. And so it doesn't matter if your pieces are exactly the same, because I'm going to roll out sheets and then we're going to put the filling on and then put another sheet on top. One other thing that we do is make sure that the pieces we're not working with, that we have them covered with plastic wrap, because I don't want them to dry out. So make sure that your dough is well floured, and you want to make sure that you kind of flatten it out a little bit like this. Okay, there's dials on the side here. Number 1 is the thickest, meaning it will it's for the first pass that you put through, and then as you get a little bit thinner and thinner and thinner, I want to get kind of to a number 5 or a number 6 on here, which will be quite thin. Okay, so I'm going to start this on the lowest setting, and I just feed it through like this, and it basically just rolls it out like that. Okay, but that's not big enough or thin enough. So I'm going to go to number 2, and I'm going to put it through again. And now it's going to roll it a little bit thinner, and it's going to come out a little bit longer. Okay, like that. So there, it's a little bit thinner and longer. Now I'm going to number 3 and feed it through again. This dough is nice and elastic, like it's very, very nice and thin. So there's number 3. Now I'm going to number 4. Just a tiny little bit of water, which is going to seal this. I'm going to take my bag of filling that I showed you how to make. I'm going to put a dollop like that. It's about, I want to guess, probably about a tablespoon is there. And then I'm going to do this one. Leave a little bit of space. There's another about a tablespoon. You could just drop this by spoons. You don't actually have to use a piping bag. I just find it works a little bit better. Actually, let me put some water around the edges. So what that does is going to help the pasta stick to itself. Okay, so we go all the way around like that. And you sort of press around it like this, so you can see the little blob there, like that. And make sure you've pressed it all the way around. And then you take your cutter like that and press. It's kind of just like a cookie cutter, and then peel this away. And there is ravioli number 1. So you want to make sure it's nice and pressed down, because you don't want it when we boil it. We're going to boil it just like you would boil any other pasta. I don't want it to be oozing out the sides. So there's ravioli number 1. And that is how you make ravioli.